Welcome to the Kinvestor Report, where we sit down with industry experts to discuss the latest developments in the Canadian small cap sector. I'm your host, Arlen Hansen. As always, please be aware of our standard disclaimer in the description below that no part of this interview should be taken as investment advice. And as I don't know what stocks we're talking about today, Kin may own shares or be compensated by the companies we discuss in today's interview. If you find these interviews of value, be sure to join our network, subscribe to our channel, comment on the videos below, and join our conferences that we put on a few times a year, and share them with like-minded investors. Today, I'm joined by Robert Sinn, who goes by CEO Technician on Twitter, Goldfinger on CEO.ca, and Goldfinger Capital on YouTube. Robert is a trader, portfolio manager, market analyst, and a 21-year market veteran focused on precious metals, junior mining, and biotech. Robert, thanks for joining me today. How you doing?
Hey, Arlen. It's great to be here. I apologize for my backdrop, but hopefully it's the content of my words that matters more.
It sure does. You look good, buddy. You look good. Awesome to connect again in Vancouver at the Metals Investment Forum, which I believe you're a speaker around. Did you stick around for the VIRC and roundup at all?
Yeah, I did. I was in, so now I'm in Europe,
Yeah.
but last week I was in Vancouver and I was there for MIF, for the VRIC, and I was there for a couple of days of roundup. So I got the full conference week in Vancouver.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on sentiment, attendance, and audience and things like that?
I think I've spoken at MIF 5 times now, and that was by far the best attended I've ever seen. And for my Saturday morning talk, I mean, as soon as I saw I was on the schedule Saturday morning at 10 a.m., I'm like, it's probably going to be half empty. But it was a full room. So I was impressed by that. And just, as I gazed out across the audience, I was like, this is a really high level crowd here. We got fund managers, like some of the biggest fund managers in the junior mining space. We've got brokers, we've got, CEOs. So I was impressed. And at VRIC, the first day, there was like a line to get in.
Yeah.
I was in line like 20 minutes to get in, and that's like, I think that's my third one. And the previous two, I just walked right in, like
Yeah.
no
100%.
problem. So something's in the water. I'm not sure if I can put my finger on it exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe a little optimism that the
Yep.
Fed's going to cut rates. Maybe people are actually smartening up that like we're going to need a lot of metals, in the next
Yeah.
decade. So yeah.
Yeah. I was floored at the MIF audience. It was like that was just an incredibly packed room. But my takeaway though still is like the age group, right? I could probably count on two hands people under 50 years old or 40 years old. It's hard to tell how old people are, but you still don't see that younger millennial audience at these shows yet, which in my opinion will come once they start seeing, these metal stocks moving in their favor. But yeah, just that was my observation. But yeah, great turnout. I thought the VRC also had a great turnout. It was excellent for our clients and just networking. So yeah, great show. As I talked to you earlier, I want to get into some names on your watch list more in detail, but let's kind of take the segue from that last conversation and the state of the junior mining market. Like you say, there's something there, but like, what's with this dichotomy between where metal prices are and where these junior stocks are? It's just Groundhog Day right now.
Yeah, that's the $1 million, that's the million, or I don't know, I guess inflation is 10 million now. The
Yeah,
$10 million question.
trillion.
At the VRIC, I heard Ross Beatty speak, and I think the main takeaway from his presentation and what he was getting at was he's never seen this big of a disconnect, between the share prices and the gold price. Like here I am, gold is $2,070 an ounce as we have this conversation. It's basically never been higher in, recorded history.
Yeah,
And then I look at the Newmont chart, I look at the Barrick chart, I look at any number of junior gold stocks. They're all flat on their ass. I mean, they're not at 52-week lows, but they're not far away.
yeah,
And I've got CEOs calling me up every other day. Hey, I've got this financing I want to do, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
join the club.
I, I, I wrote a half dozen checks last year, and so I just kind of want to see that money come back in. before and I'm always invested. I mean, I got 12 juniors in my portfolio right now, so I'm always long. And so when, you got people asking for money, but big investor or like people who are investors, in the sector are saying, I'm going to wait a little bit. It's just really interesting that even the diehards are really low sentiment right now, even with gold at 2070. And there's just a lack of interest in mining. When
Mhm.
you see Apple and Microsoft and Google just adding 20, 30, 40, 50 billion dollars of market cap every other day, and gold's up 20 bucks and gold miners can barely add like 1%. It's really something. And he didn't have an answer for it, but he just said, hey, I've been in this business for 40 years. I've pretty much seen it all. I was here in the 1980s and 90s when everybody hated gold, but I've never seen it like this, where you got gold up here, gold stocks down here.
Yeah. Well, I think the like what I see out there is a lot of people say, "Oh, I've never seen a market this bad." I certainly have in my life, and it's pretty remarkable how short our memory is when it comes to things like that, because we still see pockets of money out there for the right deals, right? Like the Newfounds and the Snow Lines and things like that, right? But yeah, the certainly the dichotomy there I've never seen before. It's quite interesting. I think it's going to turn this year. I think the charts are, you can see it in the charts, in my opinion, that there's a rumbling, like what you said, there's money out there. People are starting to smarten up. People are starting to forward look at where supply is coming from, and there just is none. But that kind of does lead me to my next question. Do you think we're in like a demand-driven bull market or a supply deficit bull market?
Depends upon what metal you're talking
Yeah,
about.
fair
I
enough.
think with gold it would be the former, with copper it would be the latter. Um, yeah, I mean, and something that I think we have to be real about, and I'm just going to call it, like it is. The gold mining companies, the big ones like Barrick, like Newmont, they've been disappointing for a long time. Their
100%.
results are just not great, and that feeds down the sentiment food chain. It just does. And it, like, gold's at 2020, Barrick had its worst quarter in 5 years. Like what's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what's going on? And it's cost inflation, it's cost overruns, and it's just you know the challenge of mining. It's a tough business. It's a tough business, and these companies are operating across the world, like sometimes in far flung places where things can go wrong, like we saw in Panama in the last 6 months, where
Huge. That was huge. Okay.
First Quantum just literally lost their flagship mine. Like
Yep.
they put 10 billion into this over a decade, $10 billion, and they thought they had the locals on board. They thought they had the government on board. Like they thought they had done everything right, and then nope, sorry,
Yeah.
game over. So those things hurt sentiment. Like those
Yep.
kinds of things, like bad earnings, cost overruns, government's taking your projects. I mean, it
It,
hurts sentiment. So we're dealing with a couple of years of some really big headwinds in terms of bad news in the sector. But I think this has given us this opportunity. It's all this bad news that's gotten us to this point where you know share prices are super low and investor sentiment is just completely washed out, and there's just not much will to say, hey, I really want to make a big bet on the, junior mining sector.
yeah. Yeah. Um, I notice a lot of your posts are like chart driven. Are you more of a fundamentalist buyer? Are you more of a chart buyer? Or do you incorporate kind of a little bit of everything? Or what's your investment philosophy and how you're trying to make some money here?
It's a great question, Arlen. I mean, so I use all the information I can get. So I use charts, I use fundamentals, I use macro. In the junior mining sector, I think you have to know management, you have to call the CEO, you have to talk to investors, you have to get a feel for what's going on. You have to get as much data as you possibly can, quite frankly. So I use it all. But in terms of trading, so when I say trading, let's say my time frame is 2 weeks or less, so short term, I'm going to use charts first
Yeah.
and foremost, because charts tell you the trends. where the price action is going, where the buyers are lined up, where the sellers are lined up. Um, and I just think you can't I can't see how somebody could possibly trade without using technical analysis. I just
Yeah.
don't get it. I think fundamentals are very important to understand the bigger picture, macro themes like what's going on. Like for example, in the copper market right now, like just the fundamentals of the supply pressure that exists in the global copper market right now, and how the world is just needing more and more copper over time. And by like 2030, we're going to need 50% more copper than we need right now. Right. And so where is that, whatever, 8 to 10 million tons of copper going to come from?
It's
And
not.
it's right. And
It's
that's
not.
why, like, I'm sitting here and I'm just looking at First Quantum and Cobre Panama, just 350,000 metric tons offline. I'm looking at the big South American, copper porphyries. They're getting into lower and lower grades. They're mining 0.4%, 0.35% ore.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm looking at a lot of older mines in the US, getting to the end of their lives, quite
Yeah.
frankly. So we've got to go farther afield. We've got to go deeper in the earth to find that metal. So
Yeah.
that just costs more money, takes more time. And by 2030, I mean, if the forecasts are right, I don't want to say something stupid and crazy. People, oh, he said $10 copper, but I really think it's possible that by 2030 we could have $10 copper. And you'd have to think that during that move from 380 to $10, it could be a lot of money made.
Mhm. And that exploration issue is exasperated by where we are in this market, where these companies can't raise dough to to explore, right? So it's just compounding right now. What are your favorite trading vehicles for silver and gold, kind of in particular?
So I like futures. I trade the gold futures. I don't really trade. So silver, there have been times in the past where trading silver futures was really fun. There was a lot of volatility, there's a lot of volume, but not too often. Like maybe in 2011, in 2020, but lately it's I've been mainly focused on gold and gold miners. So I'll trade the big gold miners and I'll just trade gold futures and I'll just keep it super simple. Like I'm a little bug in the context of those markets, so I can easily
Mm,
buy and sell and not lose any pennies.
yeah, and you got to go upstream if you're trading. If you got that timeline of trading for sure. You talked about using all the information that you had to become more intelligent in your investment decisions. So, what do you think's changed in the last 15 years or whatever years you want to pick that either made more investors more intelligent or less intelligent?
Oh, that's another interesting one. So when the pandemic happened, when 2020 happened, and everybody was locked at home trying to find something to do, and then the Fed and the Treasury pumped in like $10 trillion in 6 months, and everything went airborne. It was just interesting to see how dumbed down the trading and investing process, got. People making TikTok videos like chart goes up, pulls back, you just buy the pullback and then it keeps going up. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, that works like a charm every time. Um,
Until it
and
doesn't.
right, it
Yeah.
often doesn't work, right? And then Dogecoin, I had friends who were putting 50 to $100,000 of their savings into Dogecoin, and I was just like, why are you doing this? Like, do you realize that this coin has a market cap of like $30 billion and it's backed by nothing? And they're like, no, but Elon Musk is tweeting about it. And I'm like, so what? He's
Yeah.
just he's having fun. Like that's not a investment thesis. And it was just crazy to see how far-fetched things got in 2021 with the GameStop short squeeze and all the meme stock mania. There are some crazy stock moves in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like I feel like investors got really dumb during that period of time. But now, fade the scene to February 2024, I feel like we're getting smarter again. I feel like there's a lot of smarter investors out there, especially in the junior mining sector. I mean, just the content and analysis that you can get for free on X, on other platforms, it's incredible. I mean, 6, 7 years ago, it wasn't like that. Like,
Hmm.
7 years ago,
You
maybe there
had
was
to get
one
the
or
you had to get the CEO on the phone to like figure
you
anything
had to
out.
get the CEO on the phone to get his story, to get one side of it, but you often couldn't get that contrarian opinion that, like, hey, maybe the project's not really as good as he's making out to be, right? Now in like one day, making a few phone calls, going to the various chat forums, going on X and following, a dozen guys, you can probably get a really good analysis on a junior mining company, which in 2016 or 2017, that might have taken a month or not even
Hmm.
been possible. So there's a lot of really good content out there. There's a lot of quality now, and a lot of it is for free or a very small price, like $200 a year, $300 a year. I mean, if you're a serious investor, you should be subscribed to like three or four smart guys and just get ideas from them and ask their opinions of ideas that you have. And that might cost you 1,500 or 2,000 a year, but it's well worth it if you're putting
If you're getting good information,
100,000 or
yeah,
$500,000 into the market. You could, in a good run in this sector, you can double your portfolio in 6 months, right? So
yeah.
it's worth it to do the work and pay the price to get quality analysis.
Yeah, I think I think these social media platforms, like, they're very conflicting, right? Yes, there is a lot of additional content out there, and you can get that information immediately. But I think it's also become very difficult for people to flesh out too, as well, like who's relevant and who's not, and who is speaking the truth and who is not speaking the truth. And I think too many investors take everything what they're reading at face value. Like, I love those platforms to get ideas, but then I got to take those ideas and do more due diligence. And I think too many people on social media, too many retail investors, they're just, hey, looking at what this person said. Oh, they made the right trade 3 times in a row, so I'm jumping in. It's going to be that fourth trade that buries you, right? So that's no, it's just really, we've been doing this for 20 plus years. It's just really cool to see the how this market has changed and the psychology and these different platforms that are available for people.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we're
yeah. Let me just throw in one point there because you made me think of something. Don't do your DD on a chat board from some guy who started his account 1 month ago, right? So
100%.
while there are some good follows, like, make sure these people have some tenure and they've been
Yeah.
around for at least 4 or 5 years, and you follow them for a bit and they're saying, intelligent things, because there's a lot of FUD, right? There's a lot of just mindless bashing going on. And then there's also, on the flip side, so-called pumping, which is
Yeah.
just being blindly optimistic. And there's there's both sides of it out there. It's at the end of the day, it's a free social platform, right? So people can just say whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, while we're at it, what are some of the kind of the names that you really like to follow on X or on some of these platforms? Or
Oh, wow. I I
hot
like
seat.
Tommy Humphreys. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so Tommy Humphreys, I like Mining Stock Daily.
Yeah.
I listen
He's
to
great.
a lot of content from Mining Stock Daily.
Trevor
Um,
Hall.
yeah,
Yeah, he's awesome.
from Trevor Hall. I like some of the CEOs. I mean, I won't name them, but some of the bigger follows out there among the sector management teams. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of good follows out there. I think I'm one of them.
Ah, yes.
Um,
Love it. Oh, so am I. So am I. Nobody follows me, buddy. It's okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into some names here. Like my audience is really, we're all junior mining. So I want you to throw some names here that you think people should watch. Again, reminder, this is not investment advice to anybody. We're not telling people to buy these stocks. We are just using this platform for ideas for you, names you haven't heard. So if you kind of like what Robert says here, do a little bit more due diligence on them and, do your own homework. But let's start off with a couple gold names that you like in the junior space. Then we'll move to silver, copper, and uranium. We'll just cover those four sectors because those are the sectors that I love. And this is all about me, of course. Um, so yeah, fire off a couple names in the gold space that you like.
Okay, so if we're talking like mega caps, I think Freeport McMoran is a very solid one. You get a lot of copper there too. If we're talking about juniors, I think like, if gold goes from 2070 to let's say 2270, okay, let's say it has a 10% move, in the next year, you want to have exposure to a lot of gold in the ground. So companies that have proven that they have millions of ounces of gold in the ground. The first name that comes to mind is Banyan Gold. Okay.
Okay.
Very strong management team, very high integrity team there at Banyan. 6.1 million ounces in, resource. So 6 million ounces of gold. They've probably got 7, 8, 9 million ounces, all told. But the average grade of the deposit is something like 0.65 grams per ton gold. So a 10% move in the gold price would have a big impact on
Lots
the
of
economics there.
yeah, lots of leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a 10% gold move could literally see that stock double. It's
Yeah.
possible. Okay.
What's the sim?
I'm not making it's BYN. B like
Okay,
boy.
BYN. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Silver, copper, silver, big BIG on the venture. So this is the
Oh,
new discovery in Idaho that Barrick put 35 million in on one drill hole. Now this is super high risk. So, it's a 200 million cap right now. So if they roll the dice and come up snake eyes in 2024, the stock could get cut in half or worse. So just beware of that. However, I think they've got the goods there. I think they've
yeah.
got the goods. And I think even just from a trading perspective, it's like 95 cents right now.
It trades
As
like
we get
water,
closer,
right?
yeah, it's got
Which
really good trading volume. As we get closer to May, when they'll start to do phase two of the drill program on this deeper copper porphyry, I think, man, the FOMO could, move it up 30,
yeah.
40% by itself, right? But again, it is high risk. If you're new to the sector, that's probably not the first one you want to buy. You probably want to stick to something, like a Freeport, um, or even a Banyan. But I love the new discovery angle and
Oh,
Barrick and
and
the
high
big boys
grade.
are, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
like
and it's
that.
copper. It's they have silver at surface. They have like 50 million ounces of silver, really
Yeah.
shallow, and then they've got this blind copper porphyry that they found down about 300 meters, and there's some hints in the latest news they put out on January 22nd that they're bigger, deeper. The 3D IP that they shot last year shows the feeder structure to the stuff they found last year. So if this follows the classic porphyry model, as they get closer to that core, the potassic core, in theory, the grades should go up and the density of the ore body should also go up. And I think that's why Barrick pulled the trigger there. It did. So I've been in this business 21 years. I've never seen Barrick cut
That
a
early in the
check
game. Yeah.
that early. I've seen
Yeah.
Barrick invest in juniors, but usually it's like a JV on the project. It's a different structure. Like they just took common stock on one drill hole. So
Yeah.
that one's, and again, I'm talking my book here. I'm talking my book,
Yep.
so I'm long. Um, what other? That's copper, silver. We did gold,
Yeah. Now I want to know what's something in the uranium space.
uranium. Okay, this is tougher for me, Arlen.
If you're familiar with it, right? Like if
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
I
if
am.
it's not your space, then all
No,
good.
no, no,
But
I am. It's just I'm a little reticent to give a pick because the sector's had such a big move. I mean, look, the super simple way is Cameco or NextGen. Like those are
yeah,
just the bread and butter. But NextGen is at a 5 billion market cap right now, and it's not even they don't even have permits. So it's kind of hard for me to look at somebody with a straight face and say you should buy a company that doesn't even have their permits at a $5 billion market cap. But it is a
yeah.
very special deposit. They're the big hedge funds can only buy like 4 or 5 stocks in the sector, just because the market caps are so small, and that's one that they're definitely buying. So, I mean, if U308 spot goes to 150, maybe next gen can be 7 or 8 billion. I don't know, but it's pretty risky. Um, Maybe smaller market cap. The symbol is SAS. Um, and that's like $120 million market cap, but that's much earlier stage. They don't have a resource. They haven't found something even close to what those other companies have. But at the end of the day, um, if this run is going to go to 150 or 200 a pound, you should see even those smaller market caps like 100 or 200. They could double or triple. But just be careful because when this worm turns, like you did in 2007 and 2008, we saw a lot of these stocks drop like 80%.
Look, they got crushed, and then it took years and years and years for it to rebuild. Just going back to NextGen quickly, because I wanted to Google that. They've got their environmental assessment approval. So I think that means that their next step is toward getting federal clearance now, just for the project development. So that's basically that major milestone. That's good. I'm super excited to see how that plays out. I took that company public in my shell, and so a huge win.
Really?
Yeah, that was my vehicle or my team's vehicle. I was the president. I won't take all the
Oh
credit
my
for it,
God, what a
but
story.
yeah. And then we worked with ISO Energy, as the spin out. So uranium is very dear to my heart. And really excited for that team over there and the way they've been able to deliver. And
NextGen has just been an incredible win. I
oh,
mean,
it's
for
crazy.
the guys who staked the project, for the first
Yeah.
round of investors, from the management team, or I don't know. I think some of the management team might be billionaires now.
Could be getting close. Could be getting close. Okay, cool. So we went over some top names there. I don't know if I have that many more questions for you. Kind of covered everything we wanted to cover. Like we got the macro picture in, we got a bunch of names that you like. What else do you want to share? Like how do we find out more about you? How do we follow you? How do we
Yeah,
get
how to
into the
find
inner
out.
circle of
So
Robert Sinn?
at Goldfinger Capital on YouTube, at Goldfinger on CEO.ca, at CEO Technician on X. Those are all great places to find me. I think parting shot, kind of like my presentation at MIF, I'm really quite optimistic on copper and gold here. And I know that Powell spoke on Wednesday and he sounded like they're not going to cut rates in March. But frankly, I don't think it really matters if they cut rates in March or May, because once they start, they're going to go for a long time. You're looking at like
Yeah.
10 rate cuts over like a year and a half. It might even be 12 rate cuts in 2 years, but it's going to be a lot of easing. The US economy is not nearly as strong as many make it out to be. And we're seeing China in some very serious turmoil. Um, and a lot of other economies are struggling as well. So we are now pivoting into central banks in easing mode. That
Mm-hmm.
is rocket fuel. Like those are when we are investors, we want to have tailwinds at our back, not
100%.
headwinds right in our face. So the winds have changed here, Arlen. The tailwinds for gold and copper investors are at our backs. So ride the tailwinds. Don't get too cute. Don't overthink it, but also don't risk more than you can afford to lose.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting comment because, like you say that about gold, about the easing, because these economies aren't doing as well, which you'd think would be very bearish for copper. But that's why I asked that question about earlier about are we in a bull like a demand-driven bull market or supply? Because I actually truly believe we don't have to see any growth in copper demand, and copper is going higher regardless. There's just no supply,
Yeah, I think
right?
you're right. I mean, like if you just know mining, the grades are falling year after year. The costs to extract the copper are going up year after year. We're having to explore in more far-flung places. We're having to drill much deeper into the earth. Just all those things
Yeah,
are massive headwinds.
yeah,
And so the price has to go up. It has to. I
yeah.
mean, the only way, so let me just throw out a potential bear case, is if China really goes into some deep, gloomy phase,
It really shits the bed.
just really shit the bed, and their economy is just, -5% quarter after quarter. Then, okay, copper could drop back to $3. But okay, so we got 30% downside and we got 200% plus of upside. Okay, I'll
Upside,
take
yeah.
that bet any day.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Awesome. Robert, thanks so much for joining me today. That was an awesome conversation. And to my listeners, once again, be sure to check out CEO Technician on Twitter, Goldfinger on CEO.ca. He's a very regular contributor there, and Goldfinger Capital on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to join the Kinvestor Network by subscribing to our channel, following us on social media, and don't forget to comment on the videos below and share them with like-minded investors. And until the next time we show our faces on this channel, take care.